Pajo Gobind Pool mat jah मानस जन्म का एही लाह पजो गोबिंद फूल मत जा मानस जन्म का एही लाह गुर सेवा ते भगत कमाई तब ये मानस देही पाए इस देही को सिमरै देव सो देही भज हर की सेव सो देही भज हर की सेव भजो गोबिंद फूल मत जा मानस जन्म का एही लाह.
So, welcome everyone. I hope you're all keeping well and are able to take this valuable opportunity to advance your spiritual progress and to think about the deeper aspects of human life. The subject of today's talk is titled The Role of Pious Living, Ethics and Karma and is subtitled Dharma versus Renunciation. Now, for those unfamiliar with the concept of a spiritual discourse, let me explain that this brief talk will be given in the form of a Satsang, which simply means associating with the truth. And this is the 9th in the series of our monthly talks or Satsangs, designed to elevate the listener toward higher spiritual truth. Now, this elementary discourse is primarily intended for those who are new to the path of high spirituality, but may also be helpful to those spiritual followers who need further reminding. Before I begin this talk, however, I would first like to say a few words of introduction to you. Everything I shall share with you today is a gift of wisdom direct from the Lord itself, for the sincere seekers of high spiritual truth. As for myself, I am a simple messenger, a disciple on the path of the Holy Truth, who has been asked to share this holy truth with you. And although I shall speak with the authority of one who has been instructed to do so by the Supreme Lord, please do not attempt to praise or glorify this humble messenger in any way. For you too are all divine beings, undergoing a human experience in this lifetime, though you may not yet be aware of this. Therefore, what is given to me freely by the highest authority, I give to you the same. In return, I only ask that you open your heart and mind to the holy message that the Supreme Lord has to offer you. Following the brief satsang, there will be a normal question and answer session, which the main UK speaker, who has been an advanced spiritual practitioner for over 25 years, shall answer. Thus, he is able to answer any queries one may have about true spirituality, which today comprises a list of questions to answer from our many listeners and members. So thank you, and we'll now begin with the satsang. The subject of today's discourse is perhaps one that most seekers of spiritual truth generally struggle with on a daily basis, and is the source of most of the personal frustrations about spirituality we all hear about. So what is this personal difficulty? Well, I'm talking here about true pious living, or how a true spiritual aspirant should actually best behave on a daily basis in order to attain spiritual insight and eventual enlightenment, while still living in the busy and alluring world of struggle, chores and illusion, etc. For most spiritual aspirants, on a deeply personal level, the biggest problem they face is the need to overcome their inherent or acquired bad habits that has festered during their life thus far, taking them away from noble living and right thinking, while at the same time trying to cope with worldly living. Now this is a big subject area, so I will break it down into concise, manageable parts, which can then be placed together to form a more complete answer, though briefly. Firstly, and in simple terms, true spiritual aspirant should ceaselessly aim to pursue a noble nature, versus giving way to sinful habits through the concept of pursuing positive thoughts and deeds versus giving way to negative thoughts and deeds. Indeed, our continued habits are naturally fueled by one's encounter with positive or negative energies on a daily basis, which also includes the important energy effects of one's thoughts. However, one also carries deep within them the sense of right and wrong, which they will either listen to or ignore as per their character. So let me elaborate. To understand why right conduct in both thought and deed is central to spiritual development, let's first examine how good or bad thinking, which is the source of all good or bad deeds, affects our spirituality. In truth, one's natural habits, habitual thoughts, if not of a pious or noble nature, creates negative energy within us that contributes to the disturbed mind, causing an inability to properly practice true spirituality. Thus, this needs to be rightly addressed if spiritual insight or progress is to be made. But how do simple thoughts actually affect us and everything around us? Well, it works like this. One's pattern of thought creates an energy surge that spiritually opens a gateway to either a higher positive or a lower negative dimension of our existence, which then automatically converts that thought into either a positive or a negative impression upon our mind, known as the rebound effect. This rebound energy, whether positive or negative, actually embeds itself upon the mind of the thinker, while the original thought itself is also recorded in a region known as the Akashic record, located in the second realm of creation, where all episodes of thoughts and deeds are stored of every living being in lower creation, on account of karmic justice. What's more, these good or bad thoughts, when repeated several times, or if acted upon, are then stored in our cellular DNA, and thus become the makeup of our future character. So, no thought, intention or deed, however small, is left unrecorded in the karmic record, and is the reason why all holy masters say that we must be very careful about what we think and feel, as well as do in our daily lives. Now on this point in particular, Jesus Christ addressed this issue by using the following example of the consequence of bad thoughts, and I quote, "If you lust after a forbidden man or woman in your heart, then even if nothing else comes of it, you have committed sin with him or her already, according to the law," meaning karma. Jesus goes on to say, "No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to all people. But God is merciful and will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, there will also be a way of escape, so that you may be able to endure it." End of quote. In another verse, Jesus further says, "Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial. For when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him. But each man is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then that desire, when it has been conceived, gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, brings forth suffering and death." On the same lines, the Buddha simply said this: you can't live a positive or pious life with a negative or sinful mind. There are many other examples that I could quote from all the holy books, but there isn't time today, and the meaning here is already very clear. The point of these examples is to show how important it is to control one's thoughts if good conduct and noble living is to be achieved, which in turn merits spiritual grace or reward. The easiest way to do this is to habitually surround yourself with noble people, holy scripture, and a positive environment, whether physical, audio, or visual, so as to form a constant reminder of the true objective of human life. Indeed, if one has a clear objective in one's mind that is spiritual and noble in nature, then one will automatically be attracted to the good, the noble, and the wise ones. One will also seek to reduce the burden of their suffering by adopting a pious or moral way of life, without being extreme about it. But patience and perseverance is needed, since one's biological and emotional urges are inherent and thus deeply embedded, though can be overcome by persistent higher thinking and noble company. The great reward for following a pious or ethical way of life is peaceful living, feeling good within oneself, and living in harmony with life, which naturally instills positive vibes that actually attracts a positive response from those around you, as well as from the environment itself. This makes for a happier existence, and most importantly, allows the Lord's grace to be felt and absorbed. There is no need to leave one's home, family, or duties in order to find peace and joy in one's heart. One can indeed enjoy both worlds, spiritual and worldly, at the same time, if managed correctly. Don't be worried either about making mistakes, as one is here to learn and evolve as a human being. Nobody is born perfect, except for the holy masters, perfect saints, or noble mystics. For if they were perfect, they would not be here. They would be in a karmic heaven instead. Similarly, nobody is wholly evil, for if they were, they would not be here either. They would be enjoying a spell in karmic hell instead. This means that every one of us here can comprehend right from wrong, and has the ability to improve themselves. Therefore, being sincerely repentant when mistakes are made, and being sincere in wanting to learn or improve oneself, is the right attitude in life. But those who let their ego stand in their way, thinking they are right and justified to either harm oneself or others, fail this task. Similarly, don't look upon others with a judgmental eye, but instead look upon oneself with sincere watchfulness. By doing so, not only do we not incur more karma or consequences, we also have more time to watch our own thoughts and deeds. Therefore, as long as one is sincere in their wish to become a noble or saintly human being, rather than a savage human animal, then naturally the right thoughts and deeds would follow. In other words, concentrate on the solution rather than the problem. Indeed, with practice and perseverance, one's noble goal is attained. The Lord knows our strengths and weaknesses, and so doesn't judge, only steers and guides. It is we who are hard on ourselves and on others, due to our own ego. We like to judge, and so become the victim of that ourselves, termed karmic retribution. As Jesus simply puts it, judge and ye shall be judged. Thus, the way forward is simple. In all that you think and do, simply follow the advice of the great saints, who say, seek sincerely to do no harm to one another, nor to oneself. This means not to intentionally wish harm upon another, nor to enact harm upon another itself, whether human, animal, or insect, etc., such as killing for any reason, unnecessarily eating animal food which must be slaughtered for your consumption, when so much else is available for food, indulging in gluttony for the sake of greed, when so many others go hungry, and being knowingly cruel to others for the sake of personal gain, or at the expense of others for one's cruel satisfaction. Not to speak with malicious intent, nor spread gossip, rumours, or disdain about others, thus acting as judge and jury in the place of the Lord, who actually knows best. Everyone is struggling in this world, and all are innocent in their dealings, since they live in ignorance. Therefore, if one knows better, one should instead help others to do the right thing, rather than condemning them, just as we would like to have done to ourselves. What joy is there in spreading negativity and misery, rather than helping and supporting? Indeed, because of this negativity, the whole world is in a state of misery. Just look at the current news programs and how they dwell upon negativity and misery, with hardly a mention of all the good that is done in the world. This fuels further negativity among watchers and makes them feel justified in joining others in the way of judgment and condemnation, etc. What they do not realize is that it is the Lord itself who has created this perfectly illusory world for our joy and adventure. Therefore, to judge another or to harm another is to judge or harm the Lord itself. In this case, when one asks the Lord for help, the Lord cannot do so, because the one who's asking they want to play the role of judge, jury, and executioner. So how can the Lord intervene? It is a very simple affair, yet very hard for some to comprehend. On this point about right living and right attitude, let's now look at what manner of pious activity and right attitude should be adopted in order to best facilitate one's spiritual progress today. To do this briefly, I will give some useful and powerful examples of right conduct and right living for the modern age, to help disciples or seekers progress faster. For this reason, therefore, I would first like to quote our own family's motto, that we have always observed since my childhood, that is enshrined in our hearts and lays down the foundation for noble living in the material world, but can equally apply to treading the spiritual path. So here it is. Let us strive every moment of our lives to make ourselves better and better to the best of our ability, so that all may profit by it. Let us think of the right, and lend our assistance to all who may need it, with no regard for anything but truth, kindness, and service. Let us take what comes with a smile, without loss of courage or wisdom. Let us be considerate of our country, our fellow citizens, and our associates in everything we say or do. Let us do right to all and wrong no other. On a similar note, there is a further well-known philosophy that is perfect for spiritual aspirants by making them aware of all that they do. It goes like this: watch your thoughts, for they become words. Watch your words, for they become actions. Watch your actions, for they become habits. Watch your habits, for they become character. And watch your character, for it becomes your destiny. And don't forget the true Lord is always there to help sincere aspirants of truth and nobility. Therefore, there is another well-known prayer that provides a good example of asking for the Lord's grace concerning the Lord's will, and it is this: O Lord, grant me the grace to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Similarly, one should adopt a habit of right thinking when dealing with one's problems in life, as well as dealing with others one may meet. So here is a powerful mantra or prayer that one may adopt to help with this. Almighty Lord, bless me with the strength and the wisdom to live happily in your will each and every day, with gratitude, love and faith in my heart. Let me make the best use of each moment of time, and let it be so that everyone I meet is better off for that experience. O Lord, bless me with the knowledge of your holy truth. And finally, let me end this discourse by quoting Mother Teresa, who wrote a wonderful prose about right conduct and right attitude in life. It famously says this: people are often unreasonable, irrational, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. What you spend years creating, others may destroy overnight. Create anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, some may become jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today will often be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. You may give the best you have, though it may never be enough. Give your best anyway. In the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. Remember this also: what you think or do today, you will have to account for tomorrow, just as surely as night follows day. And if you're suffering already, then don't add more to your burden by thinking bad thoughts, judging others, embracing greed and anger, or being resentful, etc. For what you reap today are the seeds sown in your own past, life after life, termed karma or retribution by the holy masters, and are not of others' making. In truth, break the habit now and see for yourself how wonderful life can be for you if you have the courage to face your inner demons and follow the path of truth and wisdom. Indeed, the Supreme Lord helps those who help themselves. And should you fall from time to time, do not worry. Simply repent sincerely and try harder the next time. Eventually, as long as one's heart is noble, one will succeed, I assure you. The Lord is merciful and knows your weaknesses, but also knows your true worth as a soul of the divine, who is simply caught in a trap of illusion, meaning physical existence, yet cannot interfere with your personal will, only guide you, for that is the law of creation. And this is how all enlightened ones, or blessed devotees of the Supreme Lord, without exception, live their lives, both in the past and in the present, in order to earn the grace needed to bless their life, both here and in the hereafter. Thus, I heartily wish you all well in this endeavour. Now that ends this discourse on pious living, ethics and karma. I hope you have found it informative and that it has answered some of your questions. I will now hand over back to our administrator for some questions to answer from the public. May the Lord bless you all.
Thank you. Just to go over the title again: The Role of Pious Living, Karma and Ethics. Subtitled, Dharma, Household Life versus Renunciation. The first question that I've got is for our guest speaker. Why is it so important to live an ethical life and be compassionate to others? Surely, if I mind my own business and look after myself and I am not a burden to others, that is a good way to live.
Yes, it's very important that we have love and compassion in our heart. Whatever the Lord places us, we should, bring that love from inside, which is part and the quality of our soul, into our daily life, and exercise that, because we oftentimes listen to our mind, and the mind, it's working in separation. So the mind actually don't understand love or compassion. So as long as we listen to our mind, we exercise the negative quality of the mind, we will not understand our true self, which is the soul. So at least in our daily life, try to live in love and compassion. Try to exercise the deeper quality of yourself.
Thank you. Next question from main speaker. I used to be very sociable and agreed to go to all events offered to me. But as the years go by, I prefer to stay at home and enjoy my own company rather than socialize with others. Can you explain why this is occurring?
Mostly, if one is a spiritual practitioner, then this is natural. Because as one progresses to higher and better things within, more satisfaction is obtained by being within themselves. And by being by themselves, they do not need the crowd cheering them on. They are quite self-sufficient. Therefore, they naturally then shun too much company, too much socializing, because they see it as a waste of time. And they do not see it is as equal to their benefit as it is when they're alone in their own bubble of wonderment. So why would they sacrifice their own happiness and joy to participate in social event for the sake of it? You see, so this is quite natural on a spiritual path, for people to withdraw from society naturally, without force, and become more inner focused and more peace with themselves.
Thank you. Back to our guest speaker. Is it true or automatic that all monks and nuns are good people because they renounce their worldly life?
Okay, so I will answer from my mother experience, because growing up, my mother seek a good teacher, a good spiritual teacher. She know that, that's something beyond life that we need to seek for in order to have peace and inner happiness. So she searched for that inner happiness everywhere. She went to different temple and ashram, because in Thailand there are many temples and many school of thought. So she went there and she went there for retreat, she experienced to be among them. But she just found that, oh no, these people are not enlightened beings, they're still learners. They're still into the gossip, they're still into debate, they still very much exercise their mind. There's no love and compassion there. And also, when she looked at the monk or nun, sometimes because they want to escape poverty, so they enter in the ashram system to have everything set up for them. So she looked at them, this must be one profession in our society called monk or nun. They don't actually in it, to renounce anything. They just put on a robe and act their part, perform ceremonials thing, and sometimes just give talk on teaching of the Buddha. But in their personal life, they not represent that love or compassion that Buddha represents. So she continued to search. And she brought a lot of philosophy books. But she realized that all of these spiritual teachers, they are dead. They cannot help me right now, but where can I go and learn direct meditation? The one that bring me to that inner peace, inner happiness. So one day her friend gave her a book that was a Supreme Master Xinghai book. And inside that, Supreme Master Xinghai said, we are the essence from the inner light and the inner sound. By meditating on the inner light and the inner sound, we can experience our true self and we can taste it from ourselves. But we need a living teacher to open the door to access the inner light and the inner sound. So she said, okay, I will try this out. And in the teaching, Supreme Master said, in order to exercise love and compassion, we have to become vegetarian or vegan, because animals do have soul and they go through the experience of the spiritual evolution just like us. So because they soul and we are soul, we have to exercise love and compassion, and something clicked in her. So she applied for initiation and she realized for the first time, no, the real renunciation has to be from inside, not outside. You cannot put on the robe and say like, hey, look, I renounce the world, but I live in the best comfort in the ashram. No, it's not working like that. It has to be from the heart, not what you put on as the costume.
Thank you. Back to the main speaker. Why are some people plagued with serious addictions, as this will impact on them living a pious life? It just doesn't seem fair.
Well, whatever one has today, one has brought from the past. Nothing new is added to you in this life. You have enough already that you bring with you. So to look at it that somebody else has done this to us, or some other force has done this to us, is not the right thinking. Because we have in past lives desired and lusted after these things, it now has become a habit. So in the Satsang I spoke about what's your habits, because they become your character. And in past lives, by pursuing these things, as they thought harmlessly, has now become their need, and it's become need-based. An addiction is nothing more than a need-based habit. And it is very difficult for them to overcome this without help. So it may seem unfair to them now, because let's say now they're seeking help and they wonder why these addictions exist. But what they do not realize is that they have spent so much time building these addictions, it's going to take some time to break it down. So by following spirituality and a pious way of life, this definitely chips away at these habits, and slowly they begin to fade. We must be patient, because over so many lifetimes these habits have become the norm. Now we want to break it away. We cannot do it all at once. A beautiful example that Master gave was that if you have a silk cloth laying upon a thorny bush and you want to preserve that cloth but remove it from the thorns, if you yank at it quickly, you'll shred it to pieces. But if you pluck one by one the thorns away from the cloth, then you will save the entire cloth. But patience is therefore needed.
Thank you. What top 3 things must I do to live a pious life?
Top 3 things? I think the number 1 thing is it must be your objective. If it is not your objective, then everything else is futile. It must be your singular objective. There's only one thing, not 3 things. If that singular objective is before you, then all you do in life will be geared to fulfilling that objective. Naturally, nobody has to tell you. What's missing in most people's life is the objective. So then they say, I don't know what to do in my life. I don't know what's the right thing to do, because they don't have a focus of attention, they don't have an objective. Objective must be there, then everything else follows. So it's very important that for a spiritual aspirant, they have a clear objective of higher truth and spirituality as their goal, because then automatically they'll seek the information necessary to fulfill this. So for example, and we'll ignore everything else. So for example, let's say you have just completed a hard day's work and you want to go home. You now have an objective. So when you get in your car, you know where you're going. Imagine you had no objective. Where would you go? You can go here or there, wandering endlessly. But because you have an objective, suddenly this car has become useful and it takes you back. And no matter what obstacles you see around you, you overcome them and never lose sight of the objective. You always go homeward and never get distracted, because that is your objective. So what we miss is the power of the objective. Human beings are unique in this, in that they can have a focus of attention and then apply the necessary means to attain it. So that is what they must do.
So it's not three things, it's just that one thing.
It's just the one thing, everything else follows.
Thank you. Right, I've got a couple of questions around general spirituality. As a non-initiate, can you please explain the different stages of the journey to spirituality? And when on this journey would you know when you are ready to be initiated?
Well, this could be quite a long answer, so I'm going to be very brief about this. In fact, there's a whole satsang on this, with satsang number 2, which explains the stages. Briefly, there are different levels or dimensions of existence that we exist in at the same time as the physical. So although we're aware of the physical body, that is not our only existence. We exist also in other dimensions of existence called the astral plane, the causal plane, then beyond the Par-Brahm, beyond Brahm, and then the fourth region, and eventually Satgurus and others. These regions have been explained in order to show a disciple, or a prospective disciple, let's say, that there is much more to creation than the physical, and that they originate for something far greater than their life here on earth. So these stages have been very well documented everywhere, what they're all about. We don't have time to go into them all here, but there are levels of progression from non-truth to truth, from ignorance to wisdom. And you can label them anything you like. The saints have labeled them variously, but these are simply stages of consciousness that you travel through. They're not places as such. In fact, the ultimate goal is no place at all. That's why in many religions they talk about we come from nothingness and we go back to nothingness, because that is the truth of it. It's a state of conscious awareness, not a place. However, saints have historically kind of tried to describe these things as places and activities, because from a lower perspective, that's how they seem to us. When we enter those realms, just like we're here in the physical, we think it's all real. We interact with it. We play along with it. But when we go to sleep, it's all gone. Where is your world then? The precious world, your precious house, your precious car, even your precious wife and children disappear so easily in sleep. You forget they even exist and you adopt another character in your sleep. How is this even possible? If this was absolutely real, there would be no alternative experience. When we go to the very highest realm, say the 5th realm, there's no dreaming. There's no alternative experience. There is just that awareness, continuously, forever and eternity. There's no option, no other option. The mere fact that other options can exist while living in one dimension of existence means that cannot be real. What is real must be permanent. So you can't just simply switch in and out of different realities. Then these realities must all be temporary. So that is the reason why these regions were described. And
when will you know that it's time for
when
initiation?
you're ready for initiation, the pull comes. This is not something that somebody tells you. You know. It's like if a daughter once asked her mother, "Mother, I am heavily pregnant. When will I know when I'm due to give birth?" And the mother says, "Don't worry, the whole street will know. You will scream so loudly." He says, "Don't worry, when the time comes you will know." So it is the same with initiation. When we are pulled so strongly that we want it urgently and most sincerely, then that is the time.
Thank you. Second question around general spirituality. As a non-initiate, I don't understand why the more I'm going along this spiritual path, I'm seeing people that have been initiated behaving in ways that are against Sant Mat and humanity. Why is this?
You see, just because somebody is put into the path of perfection doesn't mean they've attained perfection. The reason why they're here and the reason why they're put on the path is to make them perfect. The objective is perfection. It doesn't mean they started there. If they started with perfection, who needs Sant Mat? Who needs the Lord? They're already there. So the point is that when somebody's initiated, you shouldn't expect more of them than anyone else. They're still human. They've still got their habits. The difference is that they now have an objective. And that objective is to be a realized soul and to know the truth and become perfect like the one they follow, the Holy Master. It doesn't mean they've attained it. So we should not be judged upon anyone, whether initiate or non-initiate. They are all the same. The only difference is for the initiate, they're lucky that their time has come to be saved. And therefore they're now starting the road along salvation. Still they are human. Still they are fallible. Still they make mistakes. Still they're imperfect. But they are on the road to becoming perfect in time.
Thank you. Right, I've got a couple of questions around the masters. I'm going to read something, and it's from a book, an RSSB book, and it's called Heaven on Earth. So there's a question that comes at the end of this. I'll apologise for any mispronunciation, because I'm sure I'll have a couple. Here we go. Babaji once accompanied Maharaj Sawan Singh to the Muir Hills. Opposite Sawan Singh's Ji bungalow was a small hill known as Mujpuri or Mokshapuri, a place of pilgrimage for Hindus. Sawan Singh Ji pointed to the scenery and said to Babaji, "Look, Maharaji, what a lovely spot." Babaji replied that he had seen it before. Sawan Singh Ji thought that Babaji might have been there when he was in service, but when he inquired, Babaji said that he was referring to a time when these mountains had not yet come up and the entire place had been a flat plain. Babaji often declared that the Lord had sent him from Satgurus in earlier times to liberate souls from bondage. Babaji Maharaj visited twice in the physical plane as a PLM. Do the same PLMs come many times to this physical plane?
Yes, because when somebody reaches the level of Satgurus, some of them are assigned the role of becoming a perfect living master to save others. And those return again and again until their job is done. When they no longer wish to serve the Lord in that capacity, then they take the other option, which is to merge with Anami Purush and become annihilated as a separate form and become one with the true Lord. So when you reach Satgurus, you have two options. You can either come back again for another adventure, or to become a PLM, or you could go onward to become one with the Supreme Lord, and thus completely eliminating any duality or separation that may have occurred even conceptually. So yes, the answer is PLMs cycle round for a certain time, but not forever. They have a certain number of times that they visit. And then when their job is done to a point, they now turn their attention towards Anami Purush. They now desire only to become one with the Lord. So even PLMs and masters themselves are progressing in their spiritual evolution. Whilst they are perfect to us here compared to us, they're not perfect when it comes to Anami Purush, because they still have not desired annihilation, to become one with the Supreme Lord and become the Lord itself, extinguishing all trace of their existence or concept. you see. So there is another type of journey that goes on in Satgurus that is little spoken about. So that is the reason why PLMs come over and over again, until they become so attracted to their becoming one with the Lord that they go in the opposite direction and they go upwards rather than coming back down to help others. Either way, it's nobility. If it wasn't for them desiring to help us, we wouldn't be able to be helped. So we have to be grateful to them. But they are also undergoing their own journey.
Thank you. Right. This next question relates to a Q&A with Ishwar Puriji, and the source is from YouTube. I'm guessing it might have been a retreat or just a Q&A session. Someone asked Ishwar Puriji, once a soul reaches Satgurus, does it choose to come back again, here? He replied, the soul can come back here, not to learn anything, but for the second part of their adventure.
Yes, that follows on from what I explained earlier, that when a soul reaches Satgurus, it has options. It has free will. It has reached the ultimate. It is the Lord itself, in a way, projected as an individual as well as the concept of collective souls. So, that soul can certainly come back if it wishes to. But the next time it comes, because it has no karma and it has no desire to fulfill another adventure, it can come as a master. And it can come as a holy master. So that becomes the second part of their run in creation. So there's two ways you enter into creation. You can either descend to become an adventurer, to enjoy the full glory of creation from every possible angle. So you come as souls over and over again. Or you can decide now that you no longer want the adventure, but you want to be a helper. So you come into the creation. Now, as a PLN, let's say, or a master. Now, there are many creations actually in existence. This is not the only one. So it gets more complicated when you look at this from a Lord's point of view. Because there are many versions of creation that exist that you can participate in and help. It's not always the case that you have to come to this particular one. So many masters descend from Satgurus to help the infinite numbers of creations out there, of which this is one.
Thank you. Right, I've got a few questions regarding saints and PLMs, perfect living masters. Can you differentiate between a saint and a perfect living master? I'm assuming not all saints become perfect living masters.
Yes, you see, anyone who reaches Parbrahm, or the third level, becomes a saint. What that means is that they're no longer associated with their mind or their character. Therefore, they become pure in thought and deed. Now, for human beings, we refer to them as saints. From the Lord's point of view, they've just begun to be self-realized and begun their journey back home. Now, that doesn't mean they're a PLM. A PLM is very different. They can be a teacher, they can be an advisor, they can be even a master. They can be many things, but it cannot be a PLM. A PLM is one who's chosen to save others. So they come here for the sole purpose of bringing others on board. That is just their role. It doesn't make them any better or any less than a saint, or in fact even than a participant in creation, a human being. It's just that they've been given a role, which they do happily and willingly because it's the Lord's will, but they have no interest or ego associated with it. They don't care whether they're given the role of a PLM or whether they're given the role of a worker in a factory. They enjoy the wonder of creation from an enlightened point of view. So they just don't mind what they do. That's the truth. But a PLM is one who's been given instruction to take others back. That is all. But that doesn't mean they're higher or lower than, say, a master from the fifth realm, or anyone else, or even any one of us who are potential masters in the making, who are potential gods, which is why Jesus referred to his disciple, all ye gods, because they have a potential to be God. And Supreme Master calls every one of her disciples saints. and so on. These terms are used to explain our relationship with the Lord. So yes, whilst PLMs have a particular role to play, they do not push themselves above others, because tomorrow you could become the next PLM. Who is to know?
Okay, thank you. My understanding is that there are two types of PLM, a PLM of the mind and a PLM of the soul. Can you explain this, please?
Yes, that's in fact true. Most people see PLMs, a perfect living master, as of one type only. To explain this point, I have to explain about creation itself. Now, creation is divided into two parts. The illusory part of karma, karmic creation, and then the non-illusory part or awareness part of spiritual creation, which has no karma. Now, the karmic part of creation starts from the level of the second region, called the causal plane, downwards, or the bottom of the third region actually, down to the physical realm. This type of creation revolves around the mind and the mind's antics and the play of the mind. In other words, the character that one adopts in the illusory play. Meanwhile, the second part of creation is the soul, where the soul resides only, and the super soul or the Lord resides higher up. So this type of existence in the super soul and the soul is completely different to the way that the mind and the character plays. One is playing an illusory character like an actor on the stage, and the other one is the real person who goes home to the family and friends. So an actor is not just the actor, they also have a separate identity. So we can separate them in this way. We can say that the actor, when he's playing the part, the hero or the villain, let's say, we say, oh, he's doing this and he's doing that. But when he steps off the stage and becomes a realized self, like his own self again, we say, oh, this is the family man who's married to so-and-so, has so many kids and so on. It is pretty much the same with PLMs. Now, PLM of the mind is one who's attained the very height of mindhood. So we say this is the Buddha nature, or this is nirvana, or beyond nirvana, parinirvana, or some other level of mindfulness, which means that they have mastered the level of creation of the mind, like Brahma. So in Hinduism, for example, they say become a Brahmandi, a follower of Brahma, or a creator of the mind, just like Brahma himself. Now imagine you've reached a role in which you are the creator of the mind. You are part of universal mind. The origin of all minds comes from a simple source, just like the origin of all souls. In fact, quite uniquely so, the mind realms imitate the realms of the soul so well. They're a copycat version, but imperfect. That's the difference. Whereas the soul and the Lord are perfect, the mind is a copycat version of imperfection, but the structure and hierarchy is exactly the same. So you have Brahma, the creator, or the universal mind, and then you have all the deities and all the souls that come from there as minds, enshrouded by mind, a character that they've adopted to take part in the illusion of creation. And in the Satsang level, in the level of spiritual truth, you have the Lord itself, who has separated himself into individual souls, or drops of the ocean, as some say it, in order to take part in the creation. So when this drop comes into the mind level, it adopts a character. Now, if somebody has mastered the character realm itself, they've reached the top of the creative mind, they become Brahma itself, then we can say this is a PLM of the mind. They teach all the ways of mastering the art of living in the mind. Very similar to the PLM of the soul. But they cannot take you beyond the level of the mind. Everything they do is within the mind realm, but they do not know this. So it's not that some people may suggest that a PLM of the mind is deceiving souls. No, they're not. They really think they're a PLM, because a lot of the qualities of a genuine PLM cross over into the acting PLM. So as an actor, they do not know their own reality. So they assume that everything they're doing is right and good. But it's based upon a desire to fulfill a role, a desire to promote a particular thing, a desire to help others by themselves, not by the Lord's will, but by themselves, and a desire to, let's say, play a part or play their part in life, which they do not understand what's driving them. So they're driven by karma, actually, for an allotted time. So for example, let's say an avatar comes, like Krishna or Ram. They came here and they fulfilled their mission and they went back home. They believed they were right. They were the PLMs of the mind, which we call deities. Yeah, they became a deity. What higher is there than a deity in the level of the mind? So they acted out quite happily their role that they were given. But when you look deeply into their lives, the seed of desire, the seed of imperfection is there, and the seed of lower knowledge is there. They may refer to terms that seem like it comes from a higher place, but it does not.
So I'm guessing there's more PLMs of the mind than there are of the soul.
There are not many PLMs of the mind even. Even that is rare.
Okay.
Because a PLM of the mind is one who's attained union with the universal mind. Therefore, they become the creator of the mind realm itself. They become as powerful as Brahma. And therefore, they're able to come here and teach others and help others in the kindness of their heart. But they are deceived by their own mind. Because Kal, the creator of minds itself, the negative power, is the one who implants upon them that desire to actually fulfill this role and fulfill that role. He's the one ultimately pulling the strings. So even Brahma, who is the creator of the mind and universal, he does not know that his father, Kal, is directing him. He's there just to please his father through his whims, the will of the mind. The difference between a PLM of the soul is that a PLM of the soul is sent here by the Lord. It is not their desire. It is not their wish. And they're not filled with any ego or any desire to be recognized, appreciated, or worshipped in any way. Neither do they wish to promote themselves. Neither do they preach, they teach. Neither are they interested in changing the course of events in life. So a genuine PLM just does the Lord's bidding alone. They are emotionless. They have no emotions. They have no driving force in them that we understand as emotional human beings that directs them. They solely live in the will of the Lord. And if the Lord's will says become the road sweeper the next day, they will happily give up their robes of PLM and become a road sweeper. They have no interest in this creation. They always serve their master, their Lord, alone. Nothing else enters their heart. And this can be seen in the way they speak and their actions. And the other thing is, a PLM of the soul knows of the regions beyond the level of the mind. They do not need books to tell them. They do not need to hear it from others. They have direct access. They know. So they can describe accurately what goes on in the regions of the soul. They don't stumble. They don't have to think even. They know. And they say it so eloquently and fluently that it resonates with the listener. Whereas a PLM of the mind cannot really talk about such things. And when asked such a question, they simply make up through their own imagination. After all, they're the mind. The mind is the creator of all thoughts and all imaginations. So they simply create an answer in their mind, which is not complete and not wholesome. A more aware individual might question them and say, that doesn't seem quite right or complete, but emotionally it's appealing.
So from a layman's point of view, you could tell the difference.
No.
This is
At the lower level, it's very difficult. As they say in the West, suck it and see.
Yeah.
Whoever you are drawn to initially, go to them. Maximize what you can get out of them. But when you reach a point of dissatisfaction within, when you're no longer gaining something, then move on. Find somebody more competent to fulfill this task. Because as you progress, a true seeker, a true seeker is awakened by the Lord. The soul is awakened, not the mind. So therefore, something in them says, I'm not satisfied. Whereas their neighbour sitting there says, I'm 100% satisfied. I'm very happy. We're singing, we're dancing, we're enchanting, we're meditating. We're giving love, 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 everybody, love, peace, harmony. You know, like the hippies of the 90s. They were all thought that they were, you know, in that state of joy. And they're happy with that. They don't want truth. The followers of the mind PLMs do not want the real truth because the truth is too shocking to them. The truth means abandoning their ego, abandoning themselves, and becoming nothing. Becoming the soul, once again, the truth, the origin, which is bland in comparison. It has no taste. Like Babaji says, it's like licking a dry stone. There's no flavour. Yeah?
Or it could be a case that they're happy with their lot and they don't think there's anything higher than that.
Yes, but this is because that's their desire. Their desire is that way. But when the soul is awakened by the Supreme Lord within them, truly, then what happens is they're not satisfied for long. They may go along with the PLM of the mind, and they may engage their activity and say, this is wonderful, this is great, and all this happy talk going on. But something is still missing. Something is pulling them for more, but they do not understand it until, by the Lord's grace, they come across an enlightened one, or somebody who has knowledge of the soul. And that person says, yes, you're doing a wonderful thing, you're beyond the physical. But you know, there's more. Maybe there's something, that missing part you're having, maybe because you are missing something. Maybe the soul itself needs to be satisfied, and the mind is not the soul. But PLMs of the mind will use the soul as their term as well. They'll say the soul and the mind are one. So they say, well, you know, this is for the soul, and masters told me to initiate others and help others, and this is all mind game. This is all play of the mind. Within them, either they know the truth and therefore they deceive others, or they do not know the truth and think they are something and carry on. Most of them do not know the truth. It's very rare you get a deceptive one. They don't simply realize, they think they've attained something, so they're PLMs of the mind. And there are a few of them around. Mostly what happens is they occur after their lineage has ended. So when, after about 5 perfect living masters, usually the maximum number of 5 in any line, then any master that follow it starts slipping down the slope towards PLMs of the mind. And they form the shell of what is a religion, sometimes even masqueraded as spirituality, but it's not spirituality, because they appeal emotionally to others. They appeal to the whims of the mind, and they talk about powers and magic and things relating to the world, concerned with worldly events, and many other things that they adopt as part of their teaching. But they're not true. They're not whole. They take you only so far. So, yes, there is a difference between a PLM of the mind and a PLM of the soul. And if your time has come for true realization, then you will be drawn to the higher path. But the Lord does not judge. From the Lord's point of view, it doesn't matter. As long as you're going in that direction, if you start off with a nursery teacher, eventually you're going to become a professor. It doesn't belittle the nursery teacher. The nursery teacher is there to teach you ABC. That step is necessary for some. They're not born gifted. Yeah. So yeah, we shouldn't analyze too much, but yes, there is a difference.
Thank you. What mainly have most saints been historically criticised about, and even today?
Mostly when somebody speaks the truth, despite their karmic circumstances, they are often judged for their karma. And therefore, people forget the message that they say and look at their particular life and judge them by these. It could be many things. They could be born in a certain low-caste family, so they judge for that. They can be born a female, so they judge for that. They could be born in bandits and villains, but rose above it, yet they're still judged for that. They could be born with human frailties and weaknesses and so on, and they're judged for that. So judgment by the masses is very common among the saints. And because of this, the saints were always persecuted. Because they looked like an ordinary human being, yet they are from something else. And others would say, you claim to be so-and-so, If you are so and so, why don't you float in the air and show us something? Why don't you overcome all your problems and difficulties? Why do you still experience scandal and ridicule and so on? Why do you let all this happen? Surely you could change all these things, you see? But the saint is not here to change anything. As Jesus said, I have come to pluck brands from the burning. He never said, I come here to extinguish the fire. He said, pluck brands from the burning. Those ones who are yearning for truth, I'll come for them. And they will be able to see past all these problems that society has with the saints. They will feel some pull. They will recognize there's something in them. And despite how they look or what they are, you know, in fact, there are famous cases of villains becoming saints. In the case of the Great Master, how he brought them into his company and they become the most devoted and enlightened disciples. More so than the so-called goody-goody ones who did everything right but have high ego because of it. They say, look at me, I am so good and noble. I have never done anything wrong that I know of. I am mighty. Whereas the humble beggar says, I am a sinful man. I have sinned every day. Every day I sin. Even if I don't know it, I'm sinning. Please save me. You are the one. Such a one is worthy of that high status. So, from the human point of view, we could look at it very judgmentally. From the Lord's point of view, he knows who is genuine and who is not.
Thank you. Okay, the last question relating to saints and perfect living masters. Was Jesus a perfect living master?
You see, you have to understand that we've explained what a PLM is in reality. Now, there are many masters who are not necessarily PLMs. So it's very difficult for one to comment upon a past master. I would say that whatever level you feel Jesus was at, he gave a very noble teaching that's very much like those of the PLM. So even if they are not complete, they are nevertheless well on the road, and he should be respected as a great master of his time.
Okay, thank you. I've got a few questions around behaviour. At the current time, I seem to be surrounded by a world that doesn't make sense. People are doing things which are out of character and hurtful. How do I rise above this and be more forgiving and non-judgmental?
Well, if you are on a spiritual path and you understand that the entire creation is illusion, created by the Lord, and the Lord is in control of everything, then how can you judge? How can you judge an individual who's been given a part to play? For example, when you watch a film, how can you judge the maid for sweeping the floor in the wrong direction, when that is the part that she's been given by the director to do it this way? How can we judge? If we take this to its logical conclusion, then we will judge all the actors in the story. And then when the villain steps off the stage, we kill him. Say, you are the villain in this play. So, one who has greater understanding of the reality of life, how can they judge? It's not possible for them, because they know that the motivator and the creator is the Lord itself. And he has assigned all the parts. In order for the drama to be played out beautifully, you have to have all elements of the drama. When we watch a drama serial, we have the goodies, the baddies, the people in between, the helpers, the supporters, the others, the scenery even. All of it's in the part. You don't go around judging each and every part. That tree is in the wrong place. That man should not be there. Why is he supporting? We don't say this. We enjoy the drama. So when we come into the drama of creation, we're not here to judge. We're here to enjoy and to take part in. If we simply don't like part of it, step away. Go somewhere else. Go some other place. But don't judge, because everyone is playing their part. So this is the important point for a spiritual aspirant. A non-spiritual aspirant, of course, they don't know any different. They will judge and so be judged. Then they complain when it's their turn to be judged unfairly, because they're already giving out that justice. They're already judged during executioner. When their turn comes, then they complain as well. So the rightful way is not to be a judge, but to watch yourself alone. Look only at what you do. In the end of the day, when you go to account to yourself to the Lord, they will only ask what you have done in your role to become a spiritual aspirant. And no interest will be done in the play you took part in, who you were, what status you achieved, how many children you had, were you married, not married, you know, what level of what you have built, how many big houses you have built, how many you have destroyed. None of this will be taken into account by the Lord. The Lord is only interested in one thing, the direction of your emotion. Are you gearing towards higher truth, or are you still descending into more negativity and misery? That's all that the Lord sees, not the character you're playing.
So, regarding this person, is it best if they just carry on being their good self?
They should look only
Relating
at
to that
themselves.
person.
They should wear blinkers in life, as Maharaji used to say. Don't look upon what others are doing. Look upon yourself alone. Because you're not perfect. That's why you're in this imperfect world. Somebody could point many things to you. You have said this, you have done that. Why is your imperfection any less than anybody else's? You know, this is just ego. That we want to point a finger at others. But as they say, when you point one finger at others, 3 or 4 are pointing back at you. So don't point.
Okay, thank you. At the last Satsang, you answered a question about harmless lies by saying that such non-truths can be told if it prevents someone getting hurt. Can you elaborate further? I think this was about the woman whose husband had affairs. Remember that question?
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was the one.
The thing is this.
Do we tell the woman? That was the thing. And
Right.
You said, don't tell her.
See, I'm going to summarize this quite simply. If a hurt has been perpetrated, would another hurt solve that problem? Why add to the misery? For example, you have a child. You know how the child was born. Now the 3-year-old asks you, "Mother, how was I born?" Do you really want to tell all the gory details to the child? Or is it easier for you to say, "I brought you from a hospital"? Is the mother lying? Yes. Is she malicious? No. She's doing it to defend the other. So the point about this, the differentiate between malicious lies and harmless lies in the sense of just protecting the individual from further harm, which they cannot do anything about. Or also not even telling them things which could harm their feelings and so on. Why? Why is this necessary to cause further harm to a harmful situation? That's why I quoted Supreme Master when she answered this question.
Yeah.
When somebody asked her, this man was saying that, "I love 2 women," he said. "I have a wife and I have a lover." And he said, "Should I tell my wife about the lover?" And a master said, "Why?" He said, "Deal with it, sort it, and get rid of it." He said, "Why add more hurt to that woman?" So she was speaking from a spiritual point of view, not an ego point of view. Egotists say, "I want to know everything, even if it's not good for me, because I want to judge." Now let's say we lived in a world where non-judgment exists. There was no such thing as judgment. Everybody was okay with everything. They'd tell everything. Because people say, "Oh, that's interesting information, thanks for letting me know." They would not judge. But we don't live in that world. We live in a world where people will judge and cause harm with any information they're given.
Ooh, can I respond to that?
Hmm.
It could be a case where they may not want to judge, but they may just want to act accordingly. So with this woman, she could probably say...
But the action will always be based upon harm. Will
Do you
always
think
be
so?
based upon misery. Yes, if you tell them and they're not advanced, let's say they're advanced and they've attained advancement and they say, "Okay, for information purposes, here it is. But you're at the stage now where you just say it's karma, whatever the karma is. It has to be fulfilled and finished." That's fine. But if somebody's not at that stage, then it's purely their ego, "I want to know." And therefore, I want to judge. And that is what will happen. Because a person who's not at that level will judge the situation and feel that they have been wronged or harmed or something is going on or being betrayed, many things. So what Supreme Master was getting at was, this is the nature of human beings. Why give them more fuel to create more karma for themselves? Because now we have 2 situations. The one doing the wrong And then the person's reaction will add more fuel to that and make a bigger karma for themselves. And since the objective is to reduce the karmic burden of any individual, masters always advise keep silence, say nothing, neither gossip, nor spread rumor, nor speak negativity to anyone, whether it's wife, child, husband, friend, relative, anyone.
It's okay,
Sorry.
we'll leave it.
So this is the point.
I guess I was looking at it from the perspective of, if this woman did know, then she'd probably decide, okay, I'm not going to be with this man anymore, I'll just move on.
But that's a negative reaction.
Because if she's looking after herself?
No, it's a negative reaction because she's making judgment. It's based upon
but
judgment.
But it's hurting her.
No, it's judgment.
It's hurting her.
No, because that's judgment.
If I'm being hurt?
Yes.
Okay.
You're judging the situation.
Really?
For example, let's say the world is going on. There are lots of people killing each other.
Okay.
Like there's a war in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Let's take it away because women have very sensitive issues about this. Let's take it to Ukraine. Right? Now, we could say, from a human perspective, from a low-level emotional person, they could say, Russia is the aggressor, Ukraine is the victim, and all this is wrong. You won't hear a master saying that. The master says, the play is being played very beautifully. And then the audience say, but people are being killed. And master says, who is being killed? He said the characters are being killed, or the real person is being killed, the truth is being killed. He said you cannot kill a soul, you cannot destroy a soul. You can destroy a coat that somebody's wearing, but the coat is not their identity. Even if they wear the coat all the time, and they're recognized by the coat, and suddenly they take it off and say, who are you? They say, we're the same person. He said, but you're not wearing the coat. Have they died? No. Because this is illusion, from the Lord's point of view, I'm answering this. You can practice how you like. You become jealous or envious or angry individual. You can live any way you like. But from a spiritual point of view, one should look everything as karma, retribution. No act befalls a human being that is not in their karma. And if they cheerfully and happily accept this as the Lord's will, then they let it go and do not add more to their load. So from this point of view, to protect somebody from adding more to their load, as well as to protect themselves from further harm of emotional reaction, deal with it, solve the problem. But humans who are not enlightened wish to know everything so that they can be judged. Make no mistake, it's judgments involved. They're not neutral in this. They're not saying, oh, thanks for the information, let's carry on. Yes, go ahead.
So we have a proverb in our country.
Yes.
The sun will bring it into light. And I've made the experience that this proverb is true. So maybe you can have a situation, depending from the different persons, of course, that it's better to make a shortcut and be open and say, yes, I have made a mistake. And then it's for the other person, she or he is free to decide how to react. And you prevent making more mistakes, because if you say you have to solve the situation, well, people are very weak in solving such situations.
Let me answer this. This is a very human perspective. I think that a person who's operating at the human level really has a trouble with this point, because they want to play judge and they want to decide that this is right and this is wrong. They want to get into this karmic game of right and wrong. Actually, there are only actions that occur. You are the one who assigns that this is right and this is wrong. And who are you to decide that fate? Each one is governed by dancing to the tune of their karmas. So for you to take action as judge and decide, I should have this and I should have that, why not instead leave it in the Lord's will and say, oh Lord, whatever is best for me, let it be known to me. If it is not best for me, it will not be known. Then you will find out anyway. If you're meant to know, you'll find out by some means. The Lord will lay it such that, and then you can play your game. Now there's two ways of playing the game. You can confront them in an angry fashion, or you can say, oh, I didn't know this. how do we proceed from here in a mutual respectful way? Unfortunately, most human beings play the emotional game and want to create this right and wrong, you betray me and so on. This is not helpful to spiritual progress. You know, this might be the way of humans in the modern day, but in fact it's quite interesting that in some tribal societies they don't have this concept. Everything is open.
Yes.
And they do everything openly. Why? Because they accept everything as it is. They say it is what it is. It's quite interesting. So the way we live in a Western society is very different to, say, more free societies, but open societies. So this idea that we should know everything at all times is not possible, because if we did, we would live a total life of misery. If we knew, for example, what we had done, how far would you go with this knowledge? Let's say we knew in our past lives we did this and that, and now this person who's born to us was our bitter enemy that caused us great distress, but now they're trying to become our friend to resolve the situation. We start hating them. For what? Something that happened in the past life. How far are you going to take this? Point.
But now you're speaking for the person who has to hear the truth. You're not speaking for the person who has to confess first to himself or herself a mistake.
The point is, the second part of what Supreme Master said was, correct the situation when you can.
Yeah.
Meaning, you know what is right and wrong from the conceptual point of view. Do your best you can to resolve this in silence and quietness without big fuss, but solve the problem. Finish it. Like, not stop it there and then, because it's not in nobody's hands. The karma has to go for a certain number of breaths, days, minutes, hours and seconds. When that time comes, the plunge is pulled anyway. You see, we must not look from a judgment point of view. We must look from an occurrence point of view, a karmic point of view. Everything is happening by the Lord's will. Who are we to decide that the Lord was right in this case and wrong in that case? If we judge, so shall we be judged. This is the difference between a saintly person and another, which is why Jesus said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do," even when they were crucifying him. What's the point of Jesus coming here if he's not to be an example for us? So we could say, honestly, I have weaknesses. I like to judge. I want to be in control. I don't believe that karma is controlling me. I believe I'm in control, and that person is doing it deliberately, and I'm going to deliberately do it back to them. You can play that game, but that's called a game of suffering. Yeah, the game of love and light and compassion and kindness and knowledge is a different game. It's called forgiveness. Yeah, forgiveness is something that Jesus spoke about a lot, but people don't like that word. It's a dirty word now. Yes, go ahead.
You just stated that PLMs don't judge,
No.
but in Supreme Master's recent videos, she's constantly judging Putin, and she's constantly saying that he's going to hell.
I will try to steer away from that, because Supreme Master is playing a particular role. Let's say devil's advocate. So listen to all her content from the very beginning when she spoke, and you'll understand why she's saying certain things. Try not to make too much of it. Look at the entirety of the story of what she's saying from beginning to end, and you'll understand why she's saying these things. She's appealing to a particular audience, and she's trying to give an example.
But isn't she encouraging judging?
You
Why
could
is
say
she
that from a
saying
Western
that?
point of view, but the Easterners don't seem to feel that. The Easterners take it differently. It's who she's relating to. The fact that we have media now means that could be listened to everybody. And people can start saying, oh, well, she's saying this and she's saying that. Yes, she may be saying these things. From Western ears, the interpretation is different. From Eastern ears, the interpretation is different.
Babaji's also from the East, he doesn't judge in that way.
No, he's from the middle, India. India's the middle. I'm talking about the Far East. They're different. They have a different audience, trust me. If you go to the Chinese community, you'll understand how they operate. It's very different.
Well, Buddha was from that area as well, he didn't judge.
Well, you could say he did. How do you know? Not one verse survives of his time, actually. But we have various verses that say do this and do not do that. In fact, in most cases, these quotes are judgmental of right and wrong. But from the higher perspective, there is no right and wrong. We are obsessed with right and wrong because we do not understand who we are, where we come from. We believe that this character is us. As long as we believe that this character is us and that this play is real, we're going to play the judgment game, which is okay if you want to play that game. What I'm saying is that this is a suffering game. And if you say, I've had enough of suffering, I want to get out of suffering, then rise above this. Seek the truth. Know that all are helpless. They're all innocent. There's no guilty parties anywhere. Everybody's innocent because they're playing the part that the Lord has assigned them, and they are ignorant of the truth. So, therefore, they play their part. And if their part calls for them to judge, let it be so. As long as they know that as ye judge, so shall ye be judged. That is a fact.
It's very difficult to understand.
Yes, it is very difficult to understand the Lord from the Lord's perspective when you're in human form. But when you go to sleep at night, all of this disappears. Where is your precious world then? All the judgments and the curses and all the problems you have go in a moment of sleep. You can get rid of it just like that. Imagine if you could do that while waking. Imagine you could withdraw the attention within and cut off from this world and see the reality that everybody's dancing to the tune of the karmas. And then you realize even you, as well as everybody else, are helpless in this. So then you plead to the Lord, oh Lord, help me, I'm the biggest sinner. Because I've done the worst thing, I've judged your creation. And therefore I've judged you. That is the worst sin. This is why judgment in many religions is considered one of the greatest of sins, after killing or stopping somebody from progressing physically. There are a few sins which we consider are worse sins. Judgment is one of them. Because by judging the Lord's creation, you are judging the Lord itself. Then when the Lord comes, when you ask the Lord, please help me, how can the Lord help you? You are judging the Lord. He says, well, you have taken the role of judge and administrator of this creation. Run it by your own means. When you give up judgment and you seek the Lord sincerely, I will be there. You cannot serve two masters.
Why can't people from the Far East understand that? Why does Supreme Master have to...
Why are there cats and dogs in the world? Why is the creation this way? If you want to understand these things, go up and understand how diverse the creation is. People come from many different points of view. If you have understanding in your heart, follow that until a better understanding comes your way. Then upgrade. So you, as the follower of truth, the objective is truth, you should want to upgrade yourself to the highest truth. Then you don't have time for all this. You have no interest. Yes?
You know, sometimes we learn more from other people than spiritual who are on the path.
Yes.
Like, we can't forgive even a little thing.
Yes.
And yet there's people whose sons have been murdered. They've
Yes.
gone into court
Yes.
and forgiven the killer.
Absolutely true.
I
Yes.
don't think
That's a very noble thing, and that's how we all should be like.
we should learn from them more
Yes.
than, you know.
And these are people not even initiated, not even on the
No,
path.
that's what I think. How can they do that and we can't?
Actually, there was a very famous case with Letitia Shakespeare. I don't know if you know the killing in Birmingham that happened in the black family. Who the daughter was caught in the crossfire of two gangs, and she died. And the mother, when she was interviewed, said, I feel sorry for them, that this is the way they live their life, that these gangs. She said, I forgive them. It wasn't their intention to kill, but they did it anyway. That is the way they are. And she said, as a Christian, because she came from a Christian background, she said, we cannot judge the Lord's creation. Very wise lady, not even an initiate.
Yeah,
Most initiates could learn from this lady.
You learn from other people more sometimes.
Thank you.
You know, like,
Yeah.
and maybe the killers would think, and how
Yes.
come she's forgiven me?
You know, what's a better way to rise above it all and see the truth of it all?
And it teaches more a lesson to the killer than, punishing them and carrying that burden. Well, we can't do
If
it,
we were a
just
perfect society, we would rehabilitate and reform everyone. Nobody would punish and nobody would judge.
Yeah.
They would say, okay, you want to correct this behavior, let's give you another alternative way of living. That's better. If you like it, follow it. That would be an ideal society. And believe it or not, there are creations like that. Not this one. So, this is a complicated subject. Any spiritually enlightened individual has no problem with this at all. And this is where the saints differ to the mortals. Because saints understand this fully. It's not that they have to even convince themselves. They see it first-hand in operation. They see how the karma is being played out
the bigger picture.
and how everybody is innocent. But the participant, he's only a participant in the play. They see everybody is guilty. That's how they look at it.
There's very simple tips that you can use, because every day we will be put in the position to judge, right? Because of our mind. And we will always be tempted to judge, to make judgment. So there's a guideline from Master. If this decision that you make will pull you closer to the Lord, you take it. If it pulls you away from the Lord, don't take it. Then your judgment will always be exercised in the alignment of God's will. You're not using your will, you use God's will. So because that decision will lead you to your salvation, the freedom of your soul.
Which
That's
is your real
easy.
self. Your real self is the soul.
Enlightening yourself as well, I think. 'cause-
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
You don't have to be perfect, but you must try. If you have this objective in life to be like the saints, to walk in the footsteps of the saints, then you take these matters very seriously. A really serious practitioner will say, wow, this is very interesting. Now, how can I go about practicing this? Not challenging it. How can I go about practicing this ideal way of life? So that one is a noble soul. That one is destined for greatness. But they only count for 3% of all initiates alone, and about 0.3% of the population. Very rare, very few. In fact, the ones who do this are famous, like Mother Teresa, for example. Yeah? She just did her job. She didn't judge why are people poor, why are some rich. She never commented politically on anything. She just served the Lord.
Also, you're losing time, so when are you going to do it?
You waste your whole life
Yeah.
in judging others and being miserable. And then when the time comes and you realize it was all a play anyway, and there's no reality to any of it, then you say, oh my God, I wasted this time. And now I have to go back into Rasi like 84 lives back. I have to go back as an amoeba and make way back to human form before I get another crack. You say, no, it's not worth it. So seek the company of the enlightened ones. The enlightened ones know best. And watch them. Do they get disturbed so easily where things go wrong? Do they get flustered? Or do they forgive those who harm them? If they forgive those who harm them and they don't get disturbed and they remain their balance, that is such a noble one. We admire them for that. We know what is right in our heart. We know what is the right thing to do. But our ego says, no, I want my repentance. I want my pound of flesh. I want my justice.
It's
Yeah?
like Alexander the Great. He realized
Yes,
while
that's
when he was
right.
dying that he shouldn't have done all that.
Yeah, he
And
realised
it's
that
too
it was, what's the point of it all? As he died, he'd conquered the whole world and the known world at the time, yet he left empty-handed. That's why he asked for his hands to be buried up, open above the ground, so that people will say that even mighty Alexander the Great, who conquered the known world at the time, left empty-handed. The reality set in. Yeah? If we can get that reality while we're living here, how much better would our life be? We can actually enjoy this creation.
Be able to.
Yeah. So try to be an enjoyer of the creation rather than a miserable one. Believe me, there's no fun in being miserable. Just hang out with the miserable ones. They'll make you miserable in no time.
Creation is beautiful, but we
It
don't
is.
see it.
That's right. He's trying to, Babaji's many times explained this point. Yeah. And this is a wonderful creation. It's a great play, and you're an adventurer here. Who cares what happens or what doesn't happen to you? Who cares if your body's even deformed? Once you're in a human form, if you have an ability to get Nam and to be saved, your job is over in creation. It's finished. Then you should not care what happens to you. Who does what to you, why they do it, and how they do it. Who cares? You're going to leave them forever. Yeah, it's just this short time you have to live with them. Be patient and put up with them. Be tolerant. Yeah, put up with it. But be in your own bubble.
We don't know
Depend
what
on
they're
no
doing
one.
Either. You don't know with their situation either.
Yeah, you don't know their situation. You don't know what the karma they have to play. So be in your own little bubble. And when you're in your bubble, wherever you go in the world, you're happy. So I think we've answered that question now.
Yeah. Okay, next question.
Yeah.
Still talking about behaviour.
Yeah.
Can someone who isn't initiated but lives a good, clean life, is vegan, meditates, does seva, and does no harm to themselves or others, go back home to the fifth realm without a perfect living master?
this is not really possible, because you can certainly attain the height of karmic existence. For example, you can go to a karmic heaven and enjoy bliss and wonder there. And most religions teach that. So they say live a good life, live a noble life, do the right things and all these things, and you will go to a karmic heaven. But there's a great difference between a temporary heaven, where you temporarily spend time there for the allotted time and then have to come back again into the creation, and reaching your permanent true home in Satgurus. So in order to reach the permanent true home, you have to be pulled out of the realm of the mind. Now the mind will not be able to switch itself off. For example, you have a computer. When you put the computer on, the electricity runs through it, and it powers it, it does all these wonderful things. But can the computer then actively pull the plug out? It can't. It cannot pull the plug out and then place itself somewhere else. It needs an external person to pull the plug and to take it to its ultimate destination, to a home, let's say, from the workplace. It cannot just go along the road by itself, pull the plug out and then travel back home. So, in the same way, we need somebody who is a realized soul, who has the power and the authority to pull a soul out of the mind realm and away from the mind. Because the mind will not shut itself down on its own. The mind wants to live forever and ever. There's no mechanism for it to shut down in this creation. In another type of creation, there is actually a way. But that's not our experience. In this creation, the mind cannot shut itself down and let go. It wants to go on forever, because the karmas of the mind are infinitely backwards and infinitely forwards. The fact that you get pulled out midway is because of the grace of the Lord, not because your time has ended. Westerners have this confusion. They say, oh, when your time ends, karmically, then you get pulled out. That's not true. There's no end to it. It's infinitely in both directions.
Thank you. How can I live... Sorry, this question is for our guest speaker. How can I live my life here on earth and make a better impact on the lives of others as a spiritual being?
Well, this morning, somebody sent me a quote that if you train your mind and use your intelligence or the higher mind to operate in this world, and realize that you are the soul, you actually use the best function of your mind serving the soul. So I said to this one that yes, in this creation, if you come into the connection of a saint or a noble person like perfect living master, you try to look at the creation from their point of view. We have our own judgmental mind. But what if we use the mind of our perfect living master to judge everything? For example, this is our eye. But we can put on glasses of our master and see the world through that glasses. Then you will find that actually your perspective will change into a better way. Once you walk onto the footsteps of the saints, then that will actually lead to the destination of our true home, to God realization. Not only self-realization, because the mind can only give you the self-realization if you work upon it. We need another perspective to show us.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions around karma. In your last satsang, you stated that receiving drishti from a perfect living master can reduce your load of karma. Would you say that doing meditation has the same power or less?
Well, there are different aspects of reducing the load, and they work very differently. So for example, having drishti from a master helps you to meditate better and progress you. So I would say they're on a par. They're equal with each other.
Thank you. Should we avoid using companies that seek to exploit or harm humanity? For example, those that use child labour animal testing, or encourage and promote negative behaviour. And this is to our guest speaker.
Sorry, can you repeat
Yeah,
all that
sure.
again?
Sorry, I should have said in the first place. My fault, sorry. Should we avoid using companies that seek to exploit or harm humanity? For example, those that use child labour, animal testing, or encourage and promote negative behaviour.
Yes, we should try to avoid if we want to create good deeds in this creation. But I see this as the part of karmic play as well, because we still have to judge, right, and study if this company make good impact in the world or bad impact in the world. Then we use our mind to judge, and from that it create good deeds. But actually, for our own salvation, our forever freedom from this creation, we have to create spiritual merit. And spiritual merit earned by seeking the truth, seeking that oneness, seeking our own true self. So once we have that intense seeking inside to go above this karmic creation, at that point we earn spiritual merit. And this is the best way than picking on one another, like, oh, you done wrong to animal, I'm not supporting you, so therefore I'm gonna condemn you. That actually create exchange in the karmic creation. So the better way of this, to try to be good in this world, try to awaken your true self first. And from that true self, from soul perspective, then you can look into the creation and act accordingly.
Thank you. Right, this is our last question. It's a general one, and it's a universe question. We like the universe question. Is there a parallel universe existing in a higher vibration, supposedly called New Earth? And will some souls ascend there from this earth?
You see, this is very much a Western idea. In the absence of true spirituality, just make it up. Whatever the whims of the mind are, suggest it. So when they read so many stories and hear so many things about parallel universes, multiverse theory, aliens and so on, then this theory came up, and the New Earth idea. The idea that if there exists a parallel universe, therefore there must be another Earth there like this one, and we can migrate to that Earth. And they call it New Earth. They have absolutely no evidence of this, or there's no suggestion even in science that anything like this exists. It's actually not true. We can't just simply go to another planet, even astrally or spiritually or whatever way they suggest, to live in another life called New Earth if we mess this one up. I'm afraid that if we mess this one up, there's nowhere else for us to go. There's only death, and death yields another type of life somewhere else, but not while we're living. We can't simply transport ourselves to another dimension like that. And in meditation, for true spiritual practitioners, they're not interested in traveling to another planet on this universe. They'd much rather go within and see higher truths of themselves and concentrate on the reality of the entirety of creation than just wandering around a few planets. There is something called astral projection where people do these sort of things. And because they have seen in their mind's eye, let's say, parallel universes, they give it a name, let's say New Earth, that they've seen a sort of planet that exists there. But it's nothing to do with us. It's of no consequence. It's born in the mind of the observer. So we should not pay any attention to this.